Okay, now we're entering part two on me being on Chief X's channel, and I never really got to present anything else after the point that we had Mushroom Man come on and then Omar come on, and he didn't get to really talk enough. And come to find out, Omar lived in Egypt for a while. Now he lives in the UK. But this other guy in the bottom right that's showing the round white dot, that's Omar's dot where he's talking. And he's finishing up with him. And he's asking each of us if we have anything that we want to finish up with. I forget, I think Mushroom Man wanted to end it up where we're all one and kumbaya or something. And that's fantastic, but not true and not in even effect in the time that we're talking about. And that's something that somebody made up in a more recent time, but it is fantastic. Let's continue. So he goes to Omar, and to find out Omar, I don't know, he talks about he learned Egyptian, and I want to find out if he learned Egyptian history that he learned in Egypt. And he says he knows about genetics from being up in the UK and learning about it too. And I would like be very interested in having a conversation on what he's taught in Egypt as opposed to what we're taught in America and in the UK about it, and what they do and don't mention, such as the blue-eyed reserve heads and all those things. But in the comments over here, there's a guy that quite often chimes in, and whenever I chime in on some of Chief X's other videos, and he mentions the reserve heads and how they are for the nobility and stuff like that and everything. But he also mentions back that there's other people with light hair, and there's some people still there with light hair and everything. And it's like, well, no, it wasn't that, you know, if you have light hair you get to be nobility. It's looking at with genetics and looking at it, the demographic is quite a bit different than it is now. In fact, in a super exposing article they came out with just a couple of years ago at the most now, they showed that well, the name of the article, or one of the pretenses to the articles, is that sub-Saharan African DNA shows up way late. And that, another thing that they didn't want to tout as being the name of the paper or a viewpoint, is that actually only 1% of the current population matches the ancient genetics, and that it's predominantly because of that sub-Saharan admix, meaning that exactly the opposite of what blacks try to pull off, which is kind of hilarious. Then they also mentioned that, you know, everybody there is about 16% now, but that also they have an Arab infusion that's into there that makes it somewhat different. And because of that and other factors, you add it all up, and there are only about 1 in 100 people matches up to genetics that are the ones that we see in the ancient Egyptians as far as themselves go. But it's evolved and twisted over time, and that's mainly in the Coptics. And I don't want to offend anybody, but the Egyptians are the closest people to the ancient Egyptians that are there now. But when we look at the nobility and we're seeing things like King Tut, it also shows you something much more revealing and a little bit more my way. Now, people say that's Eurocentric. That's not true. That's Middle East eccentric, and saying that because a small portion of Egypt attached onto the Middle East, so was its population. In fact, all of its population were Caucasian, and all of North Africa was always Caucasians. And I'm not saying that they were an Arabic people, and I'm not saying that they were all a black-headed, brown-eyed people, because what we see from all archaeology is that's not true. All the crystal blue-eyed statues I showed in the last one, and I don't want to go into it again in any bit whatsoever. So he asked me if I have a last comment, and he's already said that he wants to get something to eat, and he ain't eat all day. So I was like, okay, so you're fixing to get off. But he says he's going to get back on later, and he wants to talk to me more. That never happened, because we talked on the phone, and he got on, or texted, and he got on one of pseudo squad, the pseudo killers group, and got on there, and it was a joke, and he was pretty much caught up on that, and he didn't know if he'd do another video tonight, or he might do one tonight or later or something and everything. And I was like, all right, let me know, because we never got to finish really. And I told him on the text, I said, you know, we going through the alphabet for you on the show, I got to get to see. Actually, I never talked about black people in anything else, so I never got to even A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, get the good part through it, and maybe come on one more time and finish that alphabet with a little bit of clarification. Didn't ever happen, really. So, and it'll probably happen here soon and stuff, but I'm doing this just to clarify and make a couple of points, but let's go. So this is him telling me to be later.
Okay, cool. So, hey, Neptunes Lagoon, I gotta get out of here. Do you want to say a closing statement?
It'll go about 3 hours. You got 3 hours?
You know what? I'm gonna go live again tonight, Neptune. So just hit the notification bell and come on again.
Okay. And we look at some more of this information and go a little bit farther. I mean, we only brushed upon a couple of things and really didn't go very deep into it. We didn't talk about black people and the reality of the other half of that either, did we?
So, wait a minute. So I prepped people before you came on and said, Neptune may sound a little racist. He's a real raw, halfway crazy. But I like Neptunes for some strange reason. Because he wants to entertain me.
What's wrong with the truth, man? And, you know.
It's not that I want to entertain you. I want to give you other information and stuff. You can probably tell from our conversations, Chief, if you see this, that it's always been about me kind of fueling you with more information and more truth. I'm not showing you something I'm making up. I'm turning around and showing you pictures of all such. It really sucks at this time that we ended up having Nature Boy show up down here and get all mushroom happy, we're all one Zen thing, and kind of throw a wrench in the whole idea. It would have been better if Omar would have just been there as an addition or whatever, but you can't ever predict things like that. And you put it open like somebody to come on, and I decided, hey, you know what? I'll come on. Nobody was jumping on the thing, so I'll go ahead and jump on. But then other people jumped in too, and after what I said, and of course, I showed certain things, and all of a sudden that hit Nature Boy so hard he had to come on and go, I'm on mushrooms and we're all one, you know, and that isn't reality in any way, shape, or form. So it's kind of silly and disgusting. But yeah, I could go 3 hours, and he knows it. But we didn't get to show any of the things that are any of the other truths. And he said he preempted somebody. Yeah, he actually goes all into like, hey, I'm going to bring this guy on, but don't freak out. Like I'm going to say something weird, but I never got to go to the part that black people would probably say is racist. Well, they did have some people already say that I was racist just because I said Buddha was a Caucasian, not a European, he was a Caucasian. And that there are depictions of walls and stuff, or of this interactions of early Buddhism and so on, and where it comes from and so on, but that really wasn't supposed to be in this conversation in any way, shape, or form. It ended up going there because of Nature Boy Mushroom down here. And if I had the time or the want, or wasn't in the middle of the discussion of trying to do it, I would have probably been more eloquently and started talking about other things that have to do with ancient Buddhism and where its scope goes and where you can see these depictions that I'm talking about. And then maybe Chief X would have said the snail thing and he'd have shut the fuck up. But we didn't have that, and so we continue on. But when we continue on, I ditch it because he wants to get something to eat and he's going to get out of there. But he didn't really. What I ended up figuring out after that was there were other people in the ball pit down here waiting to get on, and so for some reason he didn't want to leave me on when this guy came on to say these things, probably because he knew what he was going to say. And I tried to get back on, and so I'm in the bullpit, and he doesn't ever draw me back in and then needs to get food and get off of it. He ends up clarifying about the idea of a black Buddha, perhaps, too. So we need to look into that.
What it is, I got much respect for you for going up against these silly motherfuckers that are lying like crazy. It's silly. It's going to be a joke for generations and generations if they quit now.
Right.
I agree with you, Matt, too.
So he agrees with me, Mushroom Boy, and everything. It's going to be a joke and everything because he realizes the scope of things after we've talked just a little bit more, and that perhaps I'm a little more grounded. What he probably doesn't realize is I've done mushrooms before and other things too, and to try to bring about enlightenment, which a lot of people did before, and they actually in the Buddha story talk about it in the way that he reached enlightenment, and finally like stepped out of himself and was able to go, oh my gosh. And quite often people, whenever they do these narcotics in that way, they have an experience which relates them to it. There have been people that are alcoholics that they turn around and get high a couple of times, and the dude just goes, hey, well, now is he stuck on that new thing? No, he doesn't want to take any more acid. He may ask for it again 5-10 years down the road, maybe doubtful. He's over the whole thing that was his problem, and now he can get on with it. But he also sees the world in a whole different way. It really does help out, and there is quite a thing whenever you do it, that there's this all-in-one Zen Buddha thing. But then if you see things and everybody else isn't at that same state, you actually see something that's much more worse. It can be a bad trip too, but let's not go there. Let's go to this next guy that he pulls on. And this guy got blocked from chat because he started talking crap. You can see he's a Caucasian, but he wanted to say something. Anyhow, there's this guy from the information show that shows up, and that's where I really wanted to get back on there, and maybe something that I wanted to go, and he gave me the link, so I popped back on it too after he said this. But wait till he says it. I'll kind of give you an idea.
Leaving the panel for so-called yes men. Unblock me in APEP. Information Man Show.
What's up?
What's happening, OG?
I just had a couple of questions. Too bad your guest left the show. Because this is the problem that I...
See, so I should have been still there. That's what he's asking for. You probably realize when he starts talking here, he's not wanting to talk to Mushroom Man in any way. And so I pull back in the bullpit in a couple of minutes, but he doesn't allow me back in because he's just ready to get something to eat, and this is all a joke, and he's done dismissed the bullshit. But there's statements made in this right here that I want to address, and he wouldn't let me. So basically, that's what all this was about, pretty much. And to introduce people that are on my channel to Chief X and everything. Again, he's somebody who knows that's not true. He's gone deep into it, and he goes deeper and deeper, and you can ask him yourself. I've fueled him with quite a few things that he did not know, viewpoints and so on. We can go all the way off here in the Middle East and start going off into the East, or we can go off into Europe. And I'm talking about Egypt. I'm talking about North Africa. I'm talking about what happened there. The people that named Africa, these people, yeah, before it was all called Libya, all that stuff. I can go through all the little Herodotus things, everything else. But let's see what this guy says here, Information Man Show.
I had. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, but your guest appears to me to want to make everything in the globe Eurocentric, as if black people or even other people did not have any basis in this world in terms.
Okay, so you saw his viewpoint there. He's saying that, so he's basically saying I'm a Eurocentric. No, if you want to call me a Middle East centric at this time or whatever, you know, I'm a dude that studies history and has well over 35 years, but not to get into anything. I could be somebody that started learning this last week, and here's this stuff, and still it would be valid. But instantly I'm taken into, oh, well, you know, he's not giving credit, he's not doing this, and he's all talking about white people. Well, we did that. Chief X did that himself by taking and putting that multiple picture up on there and going, hey, look, there's Buddha over there. Then Mushroom Man showed up and said Buddha was black. I think everybody knows Buddha was not black. Then he says Buddha was everything. No, that's not true. Well, when he was on mushrooms, Buddha thought that he was everything, and he was one with everything, and that was true. But he was also a Caucasian on mushrooms at the time, and he was one with everything. And he had snails on his head. He's going to get into that here in a second, though. But instantly, if I try to show something that's true and go through these depictions, put two and two together for people in front of them, oh, I'm a racist. That's how much leverage this word apparently has anymore now onto it. If I try to say anything that's bad about certain people, or if I mention anything that they really don't want mentioned, that's true, then I am racist because I'm trying to show something that's real. So that makes you racist. Well, no, but if you're just trying to show the bad stuff, well, uh, there ain't a lot of great in this, and all I showed was one thing about Buddha, and next thing you know, this guy claims that I'm discrediting Chinese people for being China or anything else, all the world or whatever, huh? Is that right? Now, to him it feels that way. To him it feels that way, but if he looks at the map and you'd go, okay, where were Caucasians at? You might get a different idea from him from what you'd get from reality, it sounds like, huh? But let's go on.
So, because everything he kept, because I didn't like what he said, the statement of, well, blacks have been trained. You don't know all black people.
Yeah, I said blacks have been trained in America to have a certain way and to act like it's black and white and to act like the enemy. And Chief X had walked off at that point, and I was going to say something different, but he wasn't there to respond, so I finished it in a different way. But in that same reality, blacks have been trained to be totally against Caucasians, the Caucasians that are propping them up on a daily basis, that they mooch in existence for. If just say one clear statement about this, everything around you was all made by Caucasians. All the things that you want that are so cool is all made by Caucasians. So it ends up being something that you can't avoid. When you want to be in the Bible, that was from Caucasians. When you wish that you used to know Egypt existed, which you didn't, it's again weird, but you're saying we was Caucasians. Here we have a point. Maybe I can make a point here too, because he's fixing to make a point, so I'll try to preemptive and you'll see it come out of him. West African primitives didn't know that Egypt existed and are not related to Nubians in any way. So whenever they ask, or whenever they say, we was this, we was that, are they trying to say some black people were someplace, but we weren't? We were pre-Neolithic primitives over here and didn't know it existed. Or are they saying we, because somebody with darker skin did that, so that was us, not, we weren't us, which is what it looks like. We weren't us, we were whiteys. Or we might have been Nubians. Well, they're not related to Nubians, and they're not related to Khoisan either. And I thought Chief went into that earlier, and so whenever the guy starts to go there, he asks him if he's actually seen the rest of the video, and he goes, no, I came in at the point that Neptune had come in and started showing the reserve heads and everything, and he makes some great points. Well, let's just listen.
There's some, matter of fact, all of us have been trained. If you've living in America, you've been trained by default. Then people.
So tries to deflect and discount, and it's true that due to media and everything, we all get dissuaded in certain ways, and if you're raised up in a Christian family and it's pushed upon you, you're not allowed to really look at that from a third person's point of view either, or anything else. But so we're all trained in some way, but that's not the point. We're all trained to be like, yeah, we did all this, we did incredible shit, and we're a spaceman, we're doing the newest best thing, and we don't even know what it is yet. As opposed to some other people that are involved here that just, they want to be involved so much, they try to claim other people. He asked later, who can he claim? It's weird.
People like to get into these different religions. Oh, I'm into Buddhist. All that shit is man-made ideologies to socially control us. It's all constructs.
Amen. Oh, wait, that doesn't go with that correctly. Yeah, that's true. I'll go along with that too. Yeah, people do it. They have to do something, and whenever it goes past tribal, it becomes a totally different entity. Whenever it gets bigger, it becomes a totally different entity. When you start connecting conglomerates and living under the same guise as someplace like Sumer and all of its cities did, or Egypt, and put it all together as one type idea, that becomes something totally different. Then you can take an idea where you take a nation and ideas like that and how it relates, and see how that can be used all the way through it, and that's what it was produced and used for. But I don't want to get into religious connotation, but the religion that you're all referring to in your mind every time you do it is a Caucasian religion you have adopted that had nothing to do with you. Let's continue.
In my opinion. But I gotta be honest. I didn't know about the replacement reserve heads. I thought that was interesting. He made some interesting points. I'm just simply saying that your guest, respectfully, it appeared to me that he was doing the very thing that we claim afrocentrics do. which
Okay, so he gives me a little bit of respect, and he says he didn't know I was reserve heads. What he doesn't know, and if he ever sees this, maybe he'll know now. And if I ever get a chance to go on Chiefs, and maybe we'll get the chance to talk to Chief before I do, and see if we can do this, where I set up a little thing where I go for about 30, 40 minutes. And then some questions are asked or whatever, or we can, if there are questions in the middle of that, we at least have an agenda to where the next point's going to be the next point. We're not going to go out in left field and invite Mushroom Man and start talking about India and Buddha's under a mushroom. That we won't go off in left field, that I'll be able to show him more and more things that end up being undeniable. And then once it becomes undeniable, I'll keep doing it and showing more things and more things and more things and more connections and more connections. And what was said here and what was said here. And it can be done as simply as Chief X looking it up, just like I'll be looking it up off my TV. But now all of a sudden I've turned I'm a racist and everything like that. Just because I know true history does not make me a racist. Because I say it doesn't make me a racist. Because I realize that black people are jealous and make all kinds of lies and causing their own problems, and want to show that to them so they'll quit, so they can start to alleviate their actual own problems, because living a lie isn't going to work. And everybody knows it, and everybody that does knows this, looking at it from third person's point of view, sees just how sad and pathetic it is. And that should all quit. Listen, it's going to be a joke for generations, but stop it. I think Chief X is really trying to found that, but let's go.
is claim everything is black, this is black, that's black people were here, black people were everywhere. He was well, I could tell he was well read, you know, he's well studied in what he's talking about, but you can make an argument that he's doing the same thing that Afrocentrics do. He's doing a Eurocentric thing, which...
So, if I'm not mistaken, you can correct me. Well, no. Okay, in my thoughts I correct myself. But I didn't talk about anybody being out of Egypt until it was pushed upon me by Mushroom Man here, and actually in a secondary way by Chief X, but he showed a picture that actually shows Buddha was blue-eyed. But in that endeavor, he's trying to say that I've pushed out, I've done all these things. Nothing that I showed was European, so how can it be Eurocentric? Well, the people that are Europeans used to be in the Middle East and all this. So maybe you do see what I'm saying. Is it Eurocentric? No, it's truth. It's real history versus some BS you try to make up to include yourself by picking other people out that may have darker skin than a piece of paper and claiming you have something to do with them. Can you weigh both of those, my one and yours, on a scale? No. It'll go bing so hard that you'll shoot up in the air and go to the moon.
By the way, Chief X, when we went to school, the stuff that he was talking about, that's what they taught us in school, that everything in the world was created by white people, by Europeans. So...
Oh, wow. No, they taught you everything in the world was made by the people that were there at the time. And you know that. But you're putting it together and realizing that that is the Europeans, aren't you? That is those people. And that they used to be in the Middle East a lot more than they used to, and the demographic has changed. Where's the black demographic at? Nowhere. And the people of Ethiopia are not related to you, so you have no ability to claim them or say it's we. That's your, now I'm back to the other situation, that's your black and white. Whereas if I can find anything non-whitey, I'm going to freak out and claim it as being me because it's all black and whites are the enemy there. You can definitely see that that's the only mentality they have, versus the idea of, wow, you admixed and propped us up all the way that we are now. You're trying desperately, and we're still acting like this. Oh my gosh. Well, we pretend we're woke now, but we sure as hell ain't, are we? No, that's a lie too. But at least you understand the concept, and you're still lying.
So I'm not trying to be a tit for tat here, but some of what he was saying has the same sort of perspective that you would call Afrocentrics. Making anything.
Well, There's not a comparison, though. Somebody in West Sub-Saharan Africa never went out of West Sub-Saharan Africa and even knew the world existed, versus these people that did, and they built humanity and civilization and everything that we know about. Now, that secondary group I just talked about were Caucasians. They encompass all of North Africa, all around the Mediterranean, which means Middle Earth. Not very far south. And no, that was the middle of Earth that they knew about. They draw maps. Funny, on the old Herodotus map, there isn't any sub-Saharan Africa. Nobody knows you existed. You're really, in reality, about equal to those headhunters in Irian Jaya that people have kind of left alone because they realize the mistake of taking a pre-Neolithic people into slavery and what that causes, and still causes to this day. Looky here. He gave me a little respect, and I guarantee now whenever he saw those reserve heads and blue-eyed people, he's like got a total different idea going on in his head. Sure, he thinks I'm racist and is trying to find a way to deflect and dismiss it. But check it out.
In this community, we made a term. We've been calling it. Now, if you look it up, it's not literally this meaning, but we coined the term blackology or blackologist, right?
Yeah.
They just want to make everything black.
Right.
Now, that's where blacks try to dismiss themselves as invisible, the West Sub-Saharan primitives that lived only in the Congo before the Bantu expansion and then slavery and everything else. And they want to try to include themselves in some way. He's going to try it here in just a little bit to you and then ask what he can claim. It's kind of odd. It's funny and it's sad because they just feel like they can't compare or whatever, but then he tries to pull off this, if white peoples did something nice and we didn't do it, then that's racist. Imagine that idea in your mind is the way that works. Imagine that if he did the same thing right now with himself and took him to a place in Irian Jaya and then turn around and look at him and look at that guy and go, which one are you closer to? And you're going to try to leech onto me, but you're closer to that person and you've been around these type of people a lot and had some admix. Are you related to them? No. What level were you at whenever you were met first? And so everything after that point would have to be, and then after examples are given and everything. See, that's what happened between Caucasians is a swirl all over here and the same people all over in the Middle East. They're all related to each other and the same people versus somebody that's not even known and not related and actually was a still extant hominid until that knowing happened. And then they were admixed and had a larger cranial capacity. And it wasn't too long ago. It was 4400 BC. Look up Aslar Man. It still says it. But now it tries to include Irualiru and so on. Look up the Irualiru skull and you'll see, oh, that's a small brain hominid. That's Homo erectus. Still alive then? I thought they were gone hundreds of thousands of years ago. No, they're a variation of that.
Look, I'll be fair here. I think that you can find all different types of looking people all over the world. You have people in the continent of Africa, you know this, who are called are albino. So we don't know how our genes will pop our children out. Me and you could have a child, and how do you explain black people who have a child and they both have brown eyes, but the child has blue eyes, right? Because
Well, from my understanding of genetics and everything, science, doctor stuff, whitey cracker, not witch doctor, that how that would work is that you already have 22 to 38% admix, if not more. You look like you might have been a little bit more of a, and then that admix, it might pop out occasionally. Does that mean we was blue-eyed Egyptians? No, of course not. That's a rare thing, and that's because of the blue-eyed Caucasians that make up the Egyptians, and you know it goes that way, not the other. But also there's a rare genetic defect which screws up the lens in the cornea of your eye, and it generally, he talked about albinos, so we know how rare that is with all races, but blacks have a lot of it, but they actually eat albinos in witch potions. You can look it up, it happens to this day and stuff, so we probably, if we had the conversation, we wouldn't want to go to albino world. But also in that albino statement, he's trying to, like, oh, we might put out a whitey. And that's not in any way, shape, or form it happened. That's why Chief X is fixing to ask him, you didn't watch the first of it, did you?
There may be something in that geno pool. So we're all mixed up at the end of the day. Ain't nobody pure on this planet, right? Or on this place we call America. So all
on this planet or this place we call America. Almost sound like he was going to break into an old Prince song. But no, stay back with the planet. Quit the America thing where we're supposed to be a mixing pot, but it's all Caucasians and we started mixing it.
different groups have intermixed with each other, which could be the reason why you would have Egyptians potentially that would have either blue eyes, brown eyes, whatever it may be.
So I'm guessing now he's going to try to claim the Egyptians pre-dynastic were admixed with the blue-eyed people. Okay, great. But are there any blacks in that situation? No, and the only ones that would be were Nubians. But that seemed to also, just like with black people in America, have gone the other way, where Nubians are admixed. And there are genetic studies on it. And everybody over there is admixed pretty highly. In fact, the Ethiopians are about 50-50. Depending on exactly which little communities you get in, because they segregate themselves. When I was a kid, they used to show us that they were starving, and they got all kinds of money together from us and all kinds of things to help them out, and Live Aid concerts, a bunch of whitey cracker people and stuff, and that went bad too. You probably don't want to know the history of where that money went and what happened with it, but they're slowly but surely becoming more westernized. That's the term that we use nowadays.
But at the end of the day, do we disregard the imprint that dark-skinned Africans have placed on this earth, our imprint?
Now he's probably trying to claim that he's the original and they had albino kids and the albinos took over. And that's not in any way, shape, or form how it works. That's why Chief Heck is fixing to ask him, you didn't watch the first of it. We're Aslar Man, and then before that, we were still a hominid. So basically, no, not in any way. We weren't the thing. Unless we're trying to claim we are still Homo erectus, which blacks do have up to 19%. These Negroid types here we're talking about have up to 19% ghost hominid, and a lot that no one else on the world has. So they believe it actually is a hominid, i.e. not a real modern human, but the Homo erectus form that they were right before 4400 BC. So you can see the incredible flip-flop of we was first into actually becoming, oh, you look like you're about last. In fact, you're still having trouble struggling with it, and your struggle is trying to claim that you were the father of everything, and you're not. No one else in the world has that genetics. It's kind of like a Neanderthal thing, where everybody in the world, even all the black people or dark-skinned people and Amerindians, everybody has Neanderthal DNA, but blacks don't. Well, they really do. They have a micro portion from that admix. If you look at the admix as being slightly larger than it was back in the day, just to go quickly on this, so we would have had more, and rather than 2-3% and Orientals having up to 6%, we probably would have had closer to that amount, and therefore in that admix, whenever it blends in, gets you less than 1% or so, but you still have a touch. That's it. The reason we figured out or said that they had none was because the people that we looked at thinking they were the most African people that we could get were still admixed. And so they had already had it from that. Cro-Magnon man and stuff are all over North Africa. The Negroid phenotype is kept to one small place in the Congo, and they stayed there. And as it dried up as a desert, they stayed more and more there. They didn't venture out in any way. So they are not connected, and that hominid form that they were is not connected to any other people on the planet.
By saying, well, nah, that's not black, or what's black and what's not black, Chief X? What can we claim? We know we come from West Africa, black people in America. We're not from North Africa. I get all of that. But
what can we claim? Because I really want to claim something other than myself. So, what can we point at then? No dark skin. Here's a good statement. No dark skinned person that's out of Africa is related to you in any way that you could claim as you. You're trying to do that in your Oreo yin and yang world of only blacks and whites, and it doesn't work that way. You're one people from one little spot that you don't want to be from, and you don't want to be those people. And you're showing it and self-exposing it every time you make comments, and then you self-expose totally when you start asking things like, there's darker skinned people somewhere, what can we claim? Well, you can't claim that. You can claim you, because you never knew they existed. Even if they showed you were distant related, you still didn't know they existed. I get that we are all from West Africa. Okay, there you go. So you ain't got no connections to any of these other places. What's your next statement? Not North Africa or anything like that. Okay, great. What's your next statement? But what can we claim? Only what you are. The problem that you have, and the jealousy kicks in to where you can go, well, just up in there in North Africa and Egypt, we're all Caucasians, and they appear to be related to the Europeans, and all those whiteys are all related. All the Middle Eastern people that used to be Middle Eastern before they went into Europe, with the Proto-Europeans and the Anglo-Saxons and all the things there. But also we have the effect of, there was an ice shelf pushing down at that time, and way back machine, whenever you were still a hominid, and no humans were living on the ice, and they were only skirting the Mediterranean basically, and not living in full proper Europe. Where were they? They were pushed down more around the Mediterranean. Remember, it means Middle Earth. Just like in the Tolkien, Lord of the Rings. Where are the black people in that? They don't know they exist. They must be far off the map in Never Neverland.
What can we claim?
Nothing.
And when I say that, I'm saying having black people as a group of people, or Africans, haven't they had some presence outside of the continent and had some influence? I'll mute my mic and listen.
I'll answer. Chief X was actually reading stuff, and he didn't even care. He's dismissed this guy because of the last claim that he made right there. And whenever he did, you can see his eyes veer off and him start reading the comments that are there. And he didn't really pay attention anymore because that was black-centric talk and da-da-da. And he was just going to write it off. And then he's going to tell him about the Buddha thing too. So it's back kind of in my favor a little bit, but I didn't get to come in and refute every word that he said. But you know, do you think about it? If I would have, then we would have never got to the conversation at the end, probably, where he goes, well, what can we claim that we aren't related to, that we didn't know existed? What can we claim? Look at that. Look at that.
You know what? I'm sorry, information man. I was halfway incoherent, but I think you were asking what can we claim, right?
Well,
I had some shit on my mind. I was like,
when we look at the global landscape, Africans have had some influence around the world, right?
Name it. Well, because, okay, let's clarify this point here real quick. So you're talking about so you're talking about West Sub-Saharan Africans. And down in the comments below, I'm going to put influence, blah, 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 and then have you try to put a list down there. And I want you to see if you can get those scales to start tipping in any way in your favor, or being an even way in any favor. But African people from Africa, the ancient North Africans and the Egyptian Caucasians that we'd all know well existed, did have influence on the world. You were unknown and did not. I don't know if you need a tissue right now or not, but that's the reality of things. And Africa had all this, yeah, Africa did. You weren't related and didn't know it existed, and they were Caucasians anyhow, and the people that had the most out of it and influence and so on. You can say in a modern day we try to rhyme and then we act like we're tough and we tug our bricks in public and stuff and made rap music, or we play the Caucasian basketball game real good, but really we're kind of lacking here on the end of it. And so I'm guessing you're trying to add to your claims to try to add to things that you did, as far as the Negroid type people. Whenever you try to claim Ethiopia and stuff like that, let me tell you now, they don't want you trying to claim them, and they don't like it in one bit whatsoever. You have nothing to do with anything they ever did in their history. Yeah, it's terrible, isn't it? And you know those Aborigines in Australia? You didn't know they existed. You aren't related, and you didn't do anything for them too. Can you put a list of what they've done for all of humanity? Anybody in there? The Khoisan. What have they brought to the table? I'm being serious here. I'm just being straightforward. Be in a third person's point of view, not being yourself, and look at your people as one that you're looking in front of and name it.
So if our influence is globally around the world, and if I'm correct or wrong, correct me, didn't most life start in the continent?
Well, are you willing to agree that Caucasians came from Africa, North Africa, and before they left, they were already a Caucasoid, and Proto-Caucasians were coming out, not related to you in any way, and that those are the Africans that you're talking about when you say come out of Africa? Because West Sub-Saharan Negroids didn't know the world existed and never came out of Africa until much later, and that was done by someone else. When you talk about influence across the planet, I think you can see Caucasians have an influence across the planet. You go to Tokyo, you see neon signs, you see cars, you see electricity, you see computers, you see telephones, you see all Caucasian things. People aren't living in a paper house anymore. They have some of those for show and things, and they keep some of their ancient stuff as sacred. But you don't want yours. You want anybody else's but yours, it appears. That's what's so self-exposing and sad. Like right now, you're asking on what you can claim because apparently you went out of Africa and you didn't. Understand that. That's the reality of the situation.
Humanity came out of Africa, correct?
So if it came out of humanity, and you had the Ice Age, and you had whatever global sheets that people walked over to get to other places in the world when we were all a panacea at one time, if the origins comes back to the continent, then therefore we can't disconnect the African man from the rest of the world.
The Sub-Saharan Negroid was totally disconnected from the rest of the world. Apparently, all archaeology and history shows us it was a still extant hominid until an egress by somebody who had E1B1 genetics at 4400 BC or so, because everyone before that is still a small brain hominid that was still existing. And from that point on, we have a connective to your people. Anything else that happened was never connected to your people, and the genetics show that by that 19% unknown hominid, Neanderthal DNA, and everything else all included onto it. You didn't know Egypt existed, and the people that you try to claim to weren't Egyptians and didn't know Egypt existed except for Nubians. They found out late, and they were listed as vile troglodytes and not looked upon well, and weren't even allowed into Egypt during the time, so let's not go there.
Because Africa gave birth to humanity. So you can't.
Africa gave birth to humanity. They didn't give birth to a manatee. And the people that came out of Africa weren't Negroids. No Negroid type ever went out of Africa. In fact, the only Negroid types are really you, and you're not related to the Khoisan, which you would try to include as they did under Negroid types or dark-skinned people. Negroid just means black. Negro just means black. I mean, you can't handle words. It's such a frail people that words will never hurt me, but whoa, you don't like it. You want to climb out of your skin and claim anybody else. Once you come to the point that you'll be able to admit all of this, then we can go, yeah, we've been propping you up this whole time while you've been making stupid statements. It's been real racist and terrible, but whatever. We sure hope you do quit it. Oh, we quit it because we're mentioning it now. No, we're going to believe that once you finally do. You don't mind if we make jokes about it for the rest of humanity, do you? It really doesn't matter if you do or not, but I hope you don't.
Get any Nordics, you can't get any Europeans, you can't get any Arabs, you can't get any of those people if you don't come from the source. And when,
Nobody that he just mentioned came from black people. They're not the source. In fact, they're the last person to become a modern human in humanity that we know of at this point. Someone correct me down in the comments if it's not true that Aslar Man was its modern form, and then before that it was a still extant hominid that a lot of people listening right now would probably believe died off at least over 300,000 years ago, because that's the way it seemed to used to go. But Homo sapiens is 320,000 BC, 325,000 BC, Homo sapiens, while there were still extant hominids hanging around, which is you, all the way into 4400 BC, and now you're a hybrid and still partially that person, which no one else in the world is partially that person. Genetics proves that. What does that make you think? That's the reality of the situation. What does that say for you and we were the golden spawn of everybody or the father of anybody? Realize that this is the reality. I'm speaking right now, the reality of what happened. This is the way it really went.
you know that source is the continent.
Did you where did you come on? Did you come on halfway through?
When I was listening to your guest when he was breaking down the Blue Eyes
So
and the Reserve, and I was listening to the debate when you had the other guys on.
so you came on when the guests were here, basically.
Right, I listened to the one guest, your guest, and I think they were having a debate about the religion and whether Buddhist was black and all of that. And one of your guests was actually right. If you look at the Buddhist religion, they have Buddha in many different colors.
So you can see him grasping at Buddha now in the Far East and stuff, and whenever that's not true, he's fixing to correct him. Let's see if I got enough time to put this in here.
Right,
They don't define Buddha as either black, white, or European. I thought your guest was trying to push the narrative that the Buddha is really a white person, when in fact, in the religion, they don't push that. In Buddhist religion, they don't push race.
so
They push constructs.
just to
That concept
clarify,
of being black, white.
To clarify the point real quick, they don't push race necessarily onto it, because it would be kind of embarrassing for them to turn around and go, yeah, there was this white guy named Gautama Buddha, and he came through and he had this whole different way of doing things, and he presented it to us, and we've adopted into it and flowered it from there. Just like India would have to do. That's why we have a problem with that idea, but it's been well verified over and over again. But now we're far away from Africa, and about as far away as we can get from sub-Saharan Africa in the old world, huh? And you're still trying to grip upon it and say that Buddha got curly hair, therefore, I know the statue isn't black and none of its phenotype is. I just, if somebody has curly hair, then we get to claim it, right?
Red, whatever Buddha.
yeah. So to clarify, the guy Shawwal that came on, who was a biracial,
Yeah.
claiming that Buddha was African. Now,
See, I'm not even claiming that. I'm just saying that
so
they come in different colors.
right. So I totally
No, you're kind of claiming it. You're claiming it at least has something to do with you, and they come in different colors. There is a black one somehow. There is a something. Which is your black one? It's the one with curly hair. No, listen to this.
disagree with him. I just didn't feel like having that discussion right here.
Right.
Chief disagrees.
But on Buddha's head, right, those circles and stuff that look like Bantu knots, you know what I mean,
Yes.
are they're described by historians, of that culture to represent snails, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you really look at it, that's what it really is, they're snails.
Yeah.
And that has to do with sacred geometry and Fibonacci sequence and all these things led to enlightenment and all those things that I've shown a bunch of videos about that like people don't know anything about. They're learning about it now, and I'm woke. No, you're not the people that actually embrace it and have it all in there, everything. You're trying so hard to claim someone
Up under
else.
a tree or something, mythological story goes, he was sitting under the tree and some squirrels, not squirrels, snails on his head, and that's what they represent.
Okay.
So I do not think Buddha was African or black.
Right. I'm gonna get off, but yeah, that's my point. If you look at, there's all different stuff. Matter of fact, let me just say this. This is why people.
Now, here's what's weird is he was just refuted on the idea, but he goes, that's my point. They're all different colors everywhere. And it's like, no, that's our point. It wasn't. You're trying to interject you somewhere where you never existed. The non-biblical recent primitives have a real issue with this idea of claiming themselves. Caucasians really don't. In fact, they are able to actually claim an umbrella of Caucasians that are genetically similar to each other. You can't do that. Not even with a Khoisan or pygmies you still eat to this day.
We'll say what the guy said. Because if you go to any country in the world that practices that religion, they will have a Buddha that reflects the people. You've said this yourself. People make statues that reflect who they are.
Correct.
So when you...
Yeah, we know the ancient Greeks actually said this idea that in Ethiopia, the same statue has a little more Ethiopian features onto it, but they know that that was an adaptation. So they were showing you, when people adopt things, they'll try to put it in their same guise. We can understand that, but if you start making a black Jesus, if you read the book, that's blasphemy. And you're not supposed to try to covet and lie and bear false witness, but blacks do quite often, trying to interject him in something they didn't know existed. But if you look into the idea of Jewish slave masters, you may be able to interject your idea of when you were injected with that idea, along with more admixed. Look into things sometimes that white people are telling you versus what you were taught. If you have a question, put it down in the comments. I'll try to answer you in a correct way, but I'm not going to answer in a way that's going to make you feel better about yourself or try to lie to you. No matter your color, race, or anything, I can do it from a third person's point of view. You can't, apparently.
So when we talk about a black Jesus versus a white Jesus, everybody does it.
No, really just you. I don't find Orientals drawing an Oriental Jesus and stuff. You might be able to find a picture and send it to me and stuff, but that would be a rare thing, not something like blacks try to interject. Well, we were the people of the Bible. We were in the Holy Land. We was this, we was that, whenever they weren't. And they try to weigh it on a scale that doesn't weigh on a scale, people. One people were unknown and nothing to do with it whatsoever. The other people are the ones that did it and were involved with it. Guess who? I'm not sorry about any of it happening either. It's just the way it happened. I can't be emotionally attached to the idea of it either. I've got to turn around and look at it from a third person point of view, or I'll never find enlightenment in the idea. It's a concept you really can't get.
Right? Everyone does something to reflect, because it's about trying to empower yourself spiritually, mentally, physically, what have you. So
empowering yourself falsely under a lie, and then trying to be a racist liar and claim other people's civilizations and all kinds of things, is about the most disgusting thing in humanity currently going on. There's some bad crap, but this is really out of hand. And I could be saying it because I'm so involved in it that other people are really not, and most people are probably totally unaware blacks are trying to claim other civilizations and that they were in the Bible, and there's Hebrew Israelites going around telling the Caucasians they weren't in the Bible. It was all about black people somehow, and strange, crazy things. It's all a jealous lie. I think I've clarified most of it, enough of it, if I will, and go from there on it. Hopefully Chief X will call me on, and I'll be able to get some of this out, and I'll be able to go on and show you some things I didn't even show you right here, connected to the ideas of what I had already thought of and thought through that I might show him if I ever got a chance to go on his show. I kind of need to talk to him before I do this, because let him know that, you know, we were trying to go in there and we flipped through the alphabet, and then Mushroom Man came on, and, you know, hey, then you got all these people over here at the side, and one of them says I'm a racist, one of them says I'm out of line, all the rest of them are pretty much in agreement with me once they've seen some of my information. I would just wish there wasn't anything mentioning India or anything else, because it didn't need to be in that video, did it? That's something else and a far left field thought from what's going on in the video. That's it, guys, for this one. We'll continue on with this if I get another call into Chief X's and be able to clarify and clean that up a little bit. Peace.